Legends are not born, but become one by years of hard labor. Legends are just humans who pushes the world to a place much greater. A blissful good afternoon to our respected teachers, to our director, Professor R.K. Dhiman, to Professor S.K. Shah, for gladly accepting our invitation, and to everyone here on Zoom who has spared their time and joined us in celebrating the legacy and vision of Dr. S.S. Agarwal on his birth anniversary.
Physically miles away from each other. But with the privilege of telemedicine, we all have come together at one time to pay our homage and bask in the magnificence of legacy of Dr. S.S. Agarwal.
Rightly said, Hasina, it was his vision and clairvoyance which recognized need for medical genetics and immunology in India 30 years back. He sowed the seeds of curiosity, excellence, and perfection and set high standards for these subjects, which inspires us every day to pursue our goals relentlessly.
An astute clinician, a distinguished scientist, an ideal mentor, and a perspicacious leader. There are many of qualities which also helped him laying down the strong foundation of his religion. So without further ado, let's start today's program.
We would first like to invite our dignitaries, our director, Dr. R.K. Dhiman. We would now like to invite Dr. S.K. Mishra for sparing his time today and gracing us. We would now request our dignitaries to pay homage to Dr. S.S. Agarwal.
शुभं करोति कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदा शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योति नमोऽस्तुते शुभं करोति कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदा शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं करोति कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदा शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते
The greatness and brilliance of a teacher is imbibed by their students. We all are nothing but a faint reflection of the panache of our teachers. Our generation has never met Dr. S.S. Agarwal, but we see his zeal and passion in our teachers every day. Dr. S.S. Agarwal has laid the foundation of our department, but it's only with the ardency and sweat and toil of our head, Dr. Shubha Patel, that this department has reached its glory, which Sir had envisioned. The alumni of the department in India and world over are an embodiment of this very vision. I would now like to invite Madam to address today's event and also introduce our guest speaker.
Good afternoon to you all. Respected Dr. Dhiman, Dr. S.K. Mishra, Dr. Girish, and all my colleagues, friends, and those who have joined from everywhere in the world. I welcome you all and also thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this event, which is very close to our hearts. This annual event is organized by the Department of Medical Genetics in collaboration with Society for Indian Academy of Medical Genetics. I every year feel as this event comes close by and on the day especially that it is something like the time to retrospect on the last year's achievements, events, as well as to sort of present progress card of the department to Dr. S.S. Agarwal wherever he may be. Due to pandemic last year, all the activities were surrounding the corona activities only. And like all other clinicians, we and our department staff also contributed to the COVID patient care work greatly. However, in spite of these COVID-related activities, there are some things which are very important, which occurred during last year, and I would like to mention is that first important thing is rare disease policy. Government of India, in addition to taking COVID, which has become commonest disorder, also finalized the long-awaited rare disease policy this year. And under this policy, 7 centers in India have been awarded the Center of Excellence role. And this includes Medical Genetics Department of HDPGI. In addition to the funds for the patient care, we also will be given funds for strengthening infrastructure for diagnostics of genetic disorders. This is very major step when we always feel that the most of the disorders with genetics disorders do not have treatment, but nowadays as new treatments are becoming available, they are beyond reach of most of the patients in India because of the high cost of these medicines. 2 weeks ago, in this regard, Honorable Health Minister of Government of India himself took a meeting and in which all stakeholders were involved. He requested many public sector units to really fund generously for the rare disease fund for the treatment of patients with rare diseases. And because of seeing the agony of patients and families with rare disorders, many units have really shown very great interest in supporting the cause of rare diseases. You would like to know that 80% of rare diseases are genetic disorders, and due to these efforts, the patients in India will definitely be benefited. Other important activities in our department, especially for rare diseases, is funding of Indian Council of Medical Research for a virtual center of molecular medicine with focus on rare genetic diseases. Under this, as we had suggested that because our department is connected to many other medical genetics departments in India, which are headed by alumni of our institute, this center, through this virtual center, we will be working together with 4 other medical genetics centers in India and 2 basic science laboratories in India for the research in rare genetic disorders. Other important ICMR initiative is funding for support for Gangaram Hospital and our department for funding of undiagnosed disease program. All over world, these are undiagnosed disease programs where the patients with extremely rare disorders are seen, and then they may be offered diagnostic services as well as expert opinion from different specialists involved in this group. The third thing is rare disease registry by ICMR, of which in PGI is also a part. This is a very great step for collecting data of patients with rare diseases, so that policymakers, we can give some facts and figures for planning the disorders, planning the treatment of these disorders. For medical genetics in department of SGPGI, our DM program is really a matter of great pride for us, because till last few years, 5 years ago, there was no other DM program in medical genetics in India, and 43 DM students have passed till now from SGPGI, and most of them are heading various genetic centers in India. The DM pass outs have excelled in their field And today, as I said, they are great way ahead into the research at the international level also. And one of the distinguished alumnus of our department is Dr. Girish Katta, who is the guest speaker for today. Dr. Girish did DM in medical genetics in 2006, and then he was here also for some time. Then over last 10 years, with hard struggle and perseverance, he has established and brought a very excellent department of medical genetics at Kasturba Medical College in Manipal. There, the DM program has also started 2 years ago. Dr. Girish, some department has been previously running PhD program as well as MSc in genetic counseling program. Uh, Dr. Girish has a keen interest in research, and main area of his interest in research is skeletal dysplasia. He is serving as a member of nosology of International Skeletal Dysplasia Program. He is also associate editor of American Journal of Medical Genetics. His interest in research is really shown by 12 projects as per PI. One of the recent project which needs mention is Center for Rare Diseases Diagnosis, Research and Training, under which they will be starting MD PhD program, which is a very great need for India is to research to prosper. I thank Dr. Girish for accepting this invitation, and many of other alumni like Girish, as they were working hard to establish their centers as lone leaders at their places. We all were connected for last 10 years through telemedicine facility of SGPGIMS. And our once a month telemedicine, telegenetics activity is continuous for more than last 10 years. And this has not taken even like nothing, such type of telegenetic session was missed. All of them were continuously being done, and these were very much appreciated, because at many centers, as I said, there was a single clinical geneticist, and really to meet like-minded people at least once in a year, once in a month was very, very much needed, and this became possible because of the telemedicine facilities of SGPGIMS. With this, we not only were connected to each other medical geneticists, but we really, this telegenetics program has become so popular that many clinicians who are interested in genetics have joined it. And today also through this program, all of them are with us, many of them. This way we are trying to popularize and make awareness about genetics. And not only we think that it's necessary that we should create super specialist in medical genetics, but also empower all clinicians with the modern medical genetics tools of molecular medicine. So this purpose could be solved only because of telemedicine facilities, and Dr. S.K. Mishra's passionate support for this is really, really appreciable. Whenever we cross with Dr. Mishra in the corridors, he always asks about our telegenetics activities, and his whole support has been always there. So on this occasion, when all our telegenetics community is with us together, so I request, we want to felicitate Dr. Mishra and accept our loving felicitation. I request Dr. Deeman sir to do the honors.
Truly said, ma'am. Two things which were lying in limbo for the last 20 years and were probably waiting for COVID-19 to help them hatch were mRNA and telemedicine. Both were regarded to have great potential but limited real life usefulness. mRNA found its glory in the form of vaccine for COVID-19, and telemedicine stood its promise to connect the caregivers and the patient in these tough times. We are thankful to you, sir, for it was your vision and conviction in the ability of telemedicine which helped to establish the infrastructure for this very essential mode of communication. I now request Dr. S.K. Mishra to please come and share his memories and words of advice.
Good afternoon, Respected Director, SGPJ Prasad Dhiman, Madam Pramila Agarwal, and today's orator, Dr. Girish, all the faculties members are all the students of Professor Agarwal and beyond present in the remote as well as physical modes. I just want to bring out some memories in the form of images and some data to tell you how this department under the leadership of Professor Agarwal has contributed to development of telemedicine in this institute. This picture, what you see here, is a picture of year 2000, that is exactly 20 years ago. So this is the picture that denotes, this is a room, this is my office in the endocrine department, which all the equipments are removed and only the computers are placed. And this was the first research lab in telemedicine in the institute way back in 2000. You see in this picture, what Professor Agarwal is doing. Can you go back to the previous slide, please? So what Professor Agarwal is doing is using an ordinary phone. Can you see that? Connect to the computer and using the ordinary telephone line, which you may not have seen nowadays because you are all using mobile phone. It is an ordinary landline. It's called PSTN, Public Switch Telephone Network, through which she is using a video conferencing mode of a net meeting. It was there that time. And you see in the computer screen, this is all CRT monitors, not the LCD monitor that we see today. And with that screen of about stamp size video, he's talking to the pilgrims of Kailash Manasarovar in the place called Dharchula. Dharchula is the last point of public switch telephone network. Beyond that, it is all Inmarsat telephone that is used by they used to go in the groups, and the groups have been led by one of the person from the command because Mandal Nigam, they carry Inmarsat telephone, satellite telephone. So our research was how to transmit ECG and blood pressures through using this public switch network, which just gives you 5 kilobits per second compared to what you get. I don't know how much you get nowadays with the mobile phone. So that was the research we undertook. And look at the gentleman here. That time he was the director. He comes down to my office and sitting and wants to feel what is this thing that I have been telling him. This indicates two things. One, just imagine person at his age and his kind of intellectuality. He's a great learner. He always behaves like a student. You give him any topic, he will tell volumes on that. You invite to any of the CME program, comes prepared, and he will tell you exactly even what you don't know as a domain student. So I just want to tell all of you how broad his knowledge base. And not only that, he keeps on endeavoring to know more and more. And go to the next picture. So what is trying to again see, so he's a monitor. So how this data is coming there and what speed it is coming. See how intensely he's watching that. And in spite of his busy schedule, he spent that day 1 hour and saw that how this technology works and never stopped at this point of time in the year 2000. And there are many stories to share, Professor Agarwal. It's not possible in this small time to share it. He's a great motivator, not only to me or anybody, any faculty in this institute. When the institute was started, very young people came here and he motivated everybody and supported them to thrive. Like your subject, genetics, my subject was also very rare subject, and also rare diseases also. You don't hardly get MEN, you don't see also. If I ask some colleagues in state government, they say, I have not seen a parathyroid tumor. I mean, that kind of rare disease and rare specialty, just imagine at a young age, how I would have felt, and because of him, I've been here. That's what he says. It is better to bring out one paper which has impact rather than going for 100 papers, which has no value. I mean, there's so many stories to share actually. Whenever I go, he never leaves me even less than an hour or so to motivate me to do these things. And many stories are there to link to that. Next, I'll talk about telegenetics. I'm thankful to the Department of Genetics to accept my request. And they have been there since more than 17 years, ma'am. It's not 10 years, more than 17 years. We have kept all the data. Next slide, please. So you have started with district hospital and a medical college in Odisha, right? Next. So these are the pictures I'm showing you. I'm not talking about anything else. This is Borla. This is the medical college in Odisha. Next, please. Veer Sivandasai Medical College. And you and your colleagues also are taking regular lectures through genetics topics. Next, please. And these are the different network partners that we have been talking about. All of them have been benefited. And this is the one session where never found any drop, not a 0% drop of sessions. You only once in a month, but do religiously. That's what I appreciate actually. And I really indebted to the television program SGPI is indebted to department like genetics was motivator, and they've shown other people how it really helps people. And based on this data and this work, next please. So next please, some pictures. And this is the data we come to here. So you can see they have participated in multi-specialty, super specialty network that you see here, different genetics department. They also participate in medical college network. What you said, the rare subject has to be taught to people, and also the district hospital network. So starting from districts to the multi-specialty. Now all this are going to help you now all your new projects that is coming up. If you have got a connection, now madam, you have to go beyond that. You have to go beyond district to down below to the sub-center level through Ayushman Bharat program also. Next slide, please. And if you see the data here, in 2002 onwards, you can see even the 2 sessions in 2002, you have kept very carefully your data. You want to publish it, please publish it, right? And gradually we are going up. The little drop in later part of years, 1920 was 20 was completely almost nil, but something happened. There's little drop there. I'm sure you will pick up those sessions. And I request you please continue and expand your network, reach far and wide. The US specialty telemedicine is going to really contribute a lot. In fact, NIH invited me to talk about this thing in their month-long program on genetics awareness and all this thing worldwide. I spoke about the center and spoke about the activities. It is really well appreciated. Our institute is grateful for your department for contributing a lot to the telecare and also the research. Thank you. Some of the pictures that you can share it out. Finish it up, that's all. So these are all CME programs done by your regular course and ICMR course. That also you share it. I think the last slide, I think. Yeah, this is we have parked all your knowledge in the education knowledge part. So please contribute and enrich this knowledge resource. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your vivid memories and your encouragement. When words are not enough, then music begins. What words can't express, then music gives it wings. We now present the mellifluous voices of our young queenies of the department, Shikha, Kajal, Pooja, Hamda, and our first-year resident, Rani Manisha, for a musical to our teacher. With this music, enjoy the visuals of our green and clean, beautiful campus.
नन्हे से कदम लेकर जब आए पहली बार, नन्हे से कदम लेकर जब आए पहली बार, थामी हमारी उंगली उस टीचर को हमारा प्यार। गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरा, गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। मुश्किल राहों पर गिरते उठते और संभलते हैं, हम थक भी जाए पर देखो वो कभी न थकते हैं। वो टीचर ही तो है जो हमारे साथ चलते हैं, हमारे साथ चलते हैं। तो बोलो गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरा, गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। है आग हमारे अंदर पर वो ज्योत जलाते हैं, फिर प्रेम और श्रद्धा से नया विश्वास जगाते हैं। वो टीचर ही तो है जो सच्ची राह दिखाते हैं, सच्ची राह दिखाते हैं। तो बोलो गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरा, गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः।
heart what it needs at the moment. We now invite Professor R.K. Dhiman, who has taken time out of his busy schedule to grace the occasion, and request him to address the audience.
Thank you. Respected Professor S.K. Mishra and Dr. Pramila Agrawal, Professor Subha Phadke, Dr. Girish, my colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I have fond memories of my association with Professor S.S. Agarwal. I think we have been together for a number of years, maybe 14 years or 12 years, something like that, but always with a relationship of a student and the teacher. I joined KGMC in 1978, and when I came to the clinical side, so I found Professor S. Agarwal was the reader in the Department of the Medicine. Since then, we have been there till I completed my DM from this institute also. The few things that I would like to tell you from my student days in KGMC, he was the only teacher, he was the only professor in the Department of the Medicine who had his own lab. A ground floor, the basement, there is a lab, the huge lab where the immunology as well as the genetics work. And he was having many PhD students also. I remember at that time, now the Professor Sarita Agarwal, but at that time she was doing the PhD when we were doing the MD medicine or the MBBS there at that time. The only thing that I would like to tell about Dr. S.S. Agarwal, Professor S.S. Agarwal, that he was a perfectionist. If not, at least he was always for achieving the excellence. And he knows how to do the things. They were never in a hazard way. So whenever we have to present a case, we have to prepare a case for all throughout at least one day and the night. Only then we will be able to gain the confidence to present a case in front of the S.S. Agarwal. So I would say that he was the ocean of the knowledge, if not in the medicine also, but in many other areas also. He had, I think he was the only person at that time who had honors in 9 out of the 10 MBBS subjects. Everybody was saying at that time he was a genius, and he was a Hewitt medalist also, if I correctly remember. So his approach to anything is basically in a very perfect way and always striving for the excellence, I would say. And he has already been told that he was a great learner also. Although whenever we were presenting our seminars or the general clubs of anything, what I have observed one thing, that he summarizes the things in a best way that even you cannot imagine. So you are presenting a seminar and he summarizes the whole seminar in a such a way that everybody understands. So he was a brilliant person, he was a genius person, I would say, and he was a great motivator also. So he always pushes you to do something extra what is in the routine also. That is the one thing that I have observed. Even during my DM, when I was doing a DM in gastroenterology here, and we have sometimes a combined session, particularly with the immunology. When I joined here, I found that he was heading 2 departments. One is the immunology, another is the medical genetics. And you have seen the growth of both the departments. And I am proud to say, and I feel proud also, that the medical genetics department of this institute has been nominated as the center of the excellence for the rare genetic diseases. I think that is a great achievement, and that reflects the hard work by the people of this department, faculty of this department, or the students or the PhD students of this department has done for this department. So what I have learned also, beside the rare diseases, genetic diseases, I think department is also adventuring, I would say, doing the great progress in the telegenetics field. I think that is the need of the hour also. We have been fighting with the corona for last 1 year. At least we have seen 2 waves, and we must be prepared for the third one that is may come anytime after 2 or 3 months or so. But the telemedicine has played a very great role. We are now talking of the tele ICUs also, that we can see the sickest of the sickest person, if admitted in the Agra, Bareilly or anywhere, and give consultation by the tele ICU, you can actually see the parameters of the sick person, and you can see you can visualize the patient and other things also. So that is the great thing about the telemedicine. And it is going to play in the not all in the genetical diseases also. With these words, I would just wish that this department's progress as it is progressing now, with multi-time speeds also, and you should also have, I would say, faculty who are interested in different fields of the medical genetics also. I don't know, but you know better, where we can have a development in a particular subfield or in the genetics also. But nevertheless, treating genetics diseases is not nowadays a dream also. You have the drugs, particularly the muscular dystrophies, I come to know that the person can have, once they have these medicines, a normal development also and the normal life also. And one time I also attended one of the function where the many children with the genetics diseases came, and they were many of them, they were receiving the drugs and performing very well. So I think this is the day, this is the birthday of Professor S.S. Agarwal also. And the sincere tribute to a person to whom you love will be only one thing. Just follow her or his footsteps. So you are the students over here. I'll just tell you that you must go through how this gentleman, how this great personality performed during his life days, and try to follow the footsteps of this thing, and that would be the great tribute to this gentleman. Thank you so much with these words.
Thank you, sir, for revealing us with your memories, your words of encouragement, and we are very excited for all the endeavors that the field of medical genetics holds for all of us. Without wasting any moment, we would now like to proceed towards today's guest lecture by Dr. Girish sir on Indian contribution to disease gene discovery. The stage is all yours, sir.
Good evening, Professor Dhiman, Professor Mishra, Madam Phadke, Madam Agarwal, and all the dignitaries, friends, colleagues, students. It is really an honor to give this talk today. I really miss being amongst you in Lucknow, in SGPJ physically, but because of the COVID situation, we have to do this online. Professor, I consider myself fortunate for getting an opportunity to meet Professor Agarwal several times. This photograph is taken in Manipal when he visited us in 2012 to where he was part of the launch of the Indian Academy of Medical Genetics. I revere him for importantly two qualities. One is his vision. When nobody dared to dream about genetics, he began the Department of Medical Genetics in India. And his conviction. For several years, he had to fight with the then Medical Council of India for recognition, which would not accept it as a super specialty degree. And I think it took nearly 15 years to get the accreditation by the Medical Council of India retrospectively. We are all having the fruits of his vision and conviction. We can see here now several medical geneticists trained by him directly or indirectly and spread throughout the country, and people no longer ask what is medical genetics. When nobody thought it is the right step, he was the only person to think medical genetics is the way forward, and now I think everybody agrees with this and they don't have to convince somebody. I thank Professor Fadke and her team for inviting me to give this talk in memory of Professor S.S. Agarwal. I'll be discussing Indian contributions to gene discovery. I have about 40 minutes and 40 slides. You can see the slide number in the right corner, so you can guess where I am. I'll be discussing in my talk, I'll be briefly introducing you to rare genetic diseases, the global scenario of gene discovery, and two personal gene discovery stories from our team. And then I will take you through review of Indian contributions to disease gene discovery and mm, give some thoughts on what should be done to take this forward. Rare genetic disorders are defined as diseases with the prevalence of less than 1 in 2000 people. So this is the definition, but remember there are about 7,000 to 10,000 conditions. So if you see this rarity and number of conditions, almost 1 in every 10 of us have a rare disease. Incidentally, 70 to 80% of them are monogenic. Some are infections, some are autoimmune disorders, but mostly they are genetic and that too monogenic. When we say monogenic, we mean that phenotype is explained by genetic variation in a single gene to the most of its part. And in my today's talk, I'll be focusing only on monogenic diseases. If you see the online catalog called OMIM, Online Mendelian Inheritance in Man, it catalogs nearly 8,000 rare monogenic disorders, for about 6,000 of them we have identified a genetic basis, and the remaining 1,800 are just phenotypic description for which we need to identify the genetic basis. Rare diseases together contribute to very high mortality and morbidity in children. And we have been nicely introduced by Professor Dhiman that some diseases are now treatable, but currently 90% of them do not have an FDA approved drug. But last few years have seen that things are changing. Probably it is going to take a rapid pace in terms of treatment. If you look into Indian scenario, we have 1.35 billion people, and that means we have 10 crore people with rare disease, or 90 to 100 lakhs, or 100 million, that is 10 crore people living with rare diseases in our country. Dr. Fadke has already mentioned, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has brought out national policy for rare diseases just recently, a couple of months ago, but this is just a drop in the ocean in our efforts to improve the well-being and decrease the suffering of people and families with rare diseases. Sadly, 40% or more of them do not reach a diagnosis during their first medical visit. It is because medical people are not trained, and these diseases are so rare, expertise is so less, so many times they run from doctor to doctor in what we call diagnostic odyssey. It is about 5 years time which is taken for diagnosis on an average. It can sometimes be delayed up to 20 years, and it is not an easy step to make in the diagnosis and management. So several years are spent in the patient's lives before a diagnosis is made. So this is the Indian scenario. Now I'll briefly introduce few terms. What is disease gene identification? Okay, to tell it in simple words, disease gene identification is a process by which scientists identify mutations. Please note this word, mutations or defects in the genes responsible for a genetic disorder. I'm talking solely on monogenic disorders or Mendelian disorders or single gene disorders. We identified changes in one of the nearly 19,500 genes which is associated with a particular disease or phenotype or an illness in all the people who have mutation in that particular gene. If you go to the dictionary, discovery means the act of finding something that had not been known before, finding something new. In simple words, in medical in medical curriculum, I like this definition. What is not written in the textbooks, what is not mentioned in the OMIM, what is not mentioned in the medical literature, mostly in PubMed, if you find something new, that is nothing but discovery. So if you identify a disease and its genetic basis, which is not already listed, it is called disease gene discovery or identification. That is the topic of my presentation today. Why is this discovery critical? Why should we discover? See, we traditionally we are all teachers, or we were students. We continue to be students throughout our life, as it has already been mentioned about the quality of Professor S.S. Agarwal. Discovery is like creating new knowledge, right? It is nothing but research where we identify new diseases which is not known. Diagnosis is using the existing knowledge, and you take training to make diagnosis when the knowledge is already there, okay, which is also called imparting existing knowledge. Creating new knowledge is research, imparting existing knowledge is training, which enables diagnosis. The ultimate aim of both discovery and diagnosis is to bring them into practice, where we treat patients, we counsel, we offer prenatal diagnosis, we enable better living for patients affected with rare diseases and monogenic disorders. Now, I will show you the global scenario of rare disease gene discovery. There are four graphs. One is A, B, C, D. I'll take you through these graphs very slowly, and I would like you to follow this. See, the blue line or light green line you can see here. This is the olden strategy for discovery of rare genetic diseases. Mostly people describe the phenotypes, then slowly positional cloning came into picture and genetic basis of diseases were identified. But then you see the monogenic condition had the advantage of newer technologies slowly taking over gene discovery, and finally when the next generation sequencing or exome sequencing came, the pace at which genes were discovered, conditions were phenotyped, increased dramatically. You can also see in the graph B, in red graph, we see gene discoveries based on traditional methods, and you can see the blue lines indicate how rapidly next generation sequencing in the form of mostly exome sequencing has increased the pace of discovery of rare disease genes. This graph is just to show de novo conditions, autosomal dominant condition, autosomal recessive condition, and rare X-linked conditions, and their frequency or the rate at which they are discovered. And you can see here the contribution of next generation sequencing versus the delineation of the phenotype. It was earlier it was clinical skill. Now we delineate phenotype and genotype simultaneously. So the orange colored graph show delineation of syndromes or condition based on the phenotype, and the blue graphs show that these genes and conditions are described simultaneously, which is the current trend, where we describe new genes and their associated phenotypes simultaneously. I just wanted you to understand the last 10 years, nearly 3,000 genes and the diseases caused by them have been linked. So that means around 300 new disease genes are discovered every year. Coming to India, why are we specially placed in a good position now for gene hunting? Okay, why is India a treasure for gene hunting? One, here I would say the population is our strength. We have any disease, we have any number of patients. So the material for research is so immense, but it also increases the burden of socio-economic burden of these illnesses on our state as well as the people. So this gives us opportunity to map rare diseases. As you know, we have 4,500 anthropologically defined groups. So we have so many religions, castes, subcastes, groups, tribals, and which have undergone several bottlenecks and founder effects, which precipitate recessive diseases. High level of endogamy or consanguinity to the rate of up to 45% is seen in several communities. We may say that in north or in certain part of our country, we don't marry a relative, we don't marry in Gotra. But remember, we always traditionally for centuries, we select our partner from the same religion, same caste, same community. So this actually has precipitated several founder effects and several consanguineous disorders. So very rare recessive disorders can be precipitated by the level of inbreeding, consanguinity and population structure in India, which is almost similar to the Middle East. Now we have increased manpower and resources, which puts us in a better position to identify new diseases and the disease causing genes. I will now show you two examples where we identified new diseases from the patients we have seen in the clinic. Every gene discovery is a story by the team which discovered it. So if we have 20 new disease genes, we have 20 stories to tell. But I think it is true for all the people who are watching, who are listening to this lecture. They also have similar stories to tell when they identify new diseases, new mutations, new phenotypes. But because of the to keep it short, I have taken two examples to illustrate how Indian population structure empowered us to make the new discovery of two monogenic conditions. This was the family which I saw where they consulted us for prenatal diagnosis in their fifth pregnancy. They had lost, the couple had lost two children, one at the age of 2 years, second one at the age of 5 years. Both had developmental delay, slowly neuroregression, seizures, spasticity, elevated creatine phosphokinase. She was 39 and she had 4 cesarean sections. My friend, who is a gynecologist, he said, Girish, if you can do prenatal diagnosis, I am ready to take the care of this lady who was desperate to have a baby. Because 4 cesarean, some of the gynecologists said this is high time that you should not continue this pregnancy. We already have 4 scars on your abdomen and uterus. But my obstetrician friend, he said, if you do prenatal diagnosis, they want to have a baby, but we did not have a diagnosis. Now, we looked into the MRI of the second child, which showed pachygyria. If you can see here, there are these arrowheads show pachygyria and moderate dilatation of ventricles, diffuse T2 hyperintensity in the cerebral and cerebellar white matter. Both places there was white matter abnormalities, and even in the posterior limb of internal capsule. MR spectroscopy showed elevated lipid lactate levels, which suggested we might be seeing a white matter disease, which is obvious here, or a mitochondrial disease because lactate was high, or congenital muscular dystrophy can present like this. It was just when next generation sequencing was available in our center. So what we did is we did whole exome sequencing trio. Money was not the problem for the family who were affording, and we found no disease, no known disease. But what was surprising was there was a very rare missense variant in ISCA1 gene, ISCA1 gene, which was identified in the homozygous state in the proband. You must see what I missed telling here is the proband was not alive. Okay, proband had undergone a test at some other center. Luckily, that center had kept the DNA even for several years when they approached us. It was nearly 2 years when they approached us. Then we requested our colleague to send the DNA to us, which was very small in quantity, but we had no option. We went ahead with the exome sequencing. Luckily, it could be done, and we identified a rare variant. But we were not sure whether it is the correct diagnosis or not. We were looking for more evidences. If you do not have any scientific evidences to show that this is a disease causing gene, you cannot offer a definitive prenatal diagnosis. Now, we confirmed it by Sanger validation. We identified the proband was homozygous, parents were heterozygous, and our bioinformatician immediately came saying that there is one more patient with the same variant, which would normally mean it is not disease causing. But when we looked into the phenotype, by then we had about 100 patients who had undergone exome sequencing for neurodevelopmental disorder, and there was a second patient who had the same variant, who had developmental delay, seizures, and regression. And when we saw the MRI, picture was same. There was extensive leukodystrophy involving cerebral and cerebellar white matter, dilated ventricles, and MRS showed elevated lipid lactate peak, which made us that these two children have the same disease. The second family had the same variant and same clinical phenotype, suggesting this is a new disorder of mitochondrial uh, gene, nuclear gene coding for mitochondrial protein. This variant was highly conserved among several species, and when we did the region of homozygosity analysis, both patients shared the same region of homozygosity around this variant, which meant they had probably common ancestry. They were from the same local community, but they could not tell us whether they were related or not. Now, if you see the pathway where ISCA1 plays a role, it is called iron sulfur biogenesis pathway in the mitochondria. Mitochondrial iron sulfur cluster assembly machinery has several proteins, and you can see here already NFU1 is associated with multiple mitochondrial dysfunction syndrome type 1, and you can see here BOLA3 in type 2, and one more here IBA57 type 3, and type 4 was also already known in one of other genes. So we now had a protein which forms one of the integral component of iron sulfur biogenesis pathway, where already 4 different types of multiple mitochondrial dysfunction syndromes were known is the possible cause in our patient. We reviewed type 1, 2, 3, 4 and our 2 families, and we came up with the proposal that this represents a new multiple mitochondrial dysfunction syndrome. We published this paper immediately, but slowly we started getting more patients with the same picture, same MRI picture, and we now have 6 families. One of them was detected by carrier testing. Anju diagnosed this condition by seeing their child's MRI, and then we had same mutation in all the families belonging to the same community, same group, in the same geographic location. And this is our paper which was published in Journal of Human Genetics in 2017. It was later indexed in OMIM as a new multiple mitochondrial dysfunction syndrome type 5, and several papers followed. But what was interesting is we are showing here 3 families. All of them share same regions of homozygosity, and they were from same geographic location of the Karnataka or northern Kerala, which suggests the high inbreeding in this part of our country and in this particular community. It is not just we enjoyed discovering a new disease. Even for the first family, we could do prenatal diagnosis. At that time, we were not really confident. Actually, the family said, please let us know whether that variant is present in the fetus or not. And with the rest of the things, we will leave it to the God. And luckily, the baby was unaffected and they had a healthy, beautiful daughter, even for the first family. The subsequent families also consulted us for counseling, and one of them for sure we did prenatal diagnosis. It is actually gratifying to see your discovery, your diagnosis makes an immediate impact to the family and your family which you have seen, and for other families in the country and across the globe. That is one of the most gratifying aspects of doing research. This is the second story. So we were referred a patient from Mumbai for short stature. She was short, otherwise she was non-syndromic. She was born to non-consanguineous couple. We identified the genetic defect, and then we saw there was a second patient with the same defect. This is the boy with short stature. Again, parents are non-consanguineous. He was also short. I will show you the radiographic picture. What was striking was, to make it simple, I'm going to explain only few features. The vertebra was beak-like or condyle with anterior beaking, and this is the normal spine at the age of 2 years. And you can see here, this is abnormal. And even the older boy had less beaking, but it was again almost similar shape as that of the first one. It should be really like a rectangle. So this is abnormality which we noted in the spine. And then in the pelvis, what we observed was large epiphysis of femoral head, short femoral neck, which was present in both of them. Even hands and the rest of the radiogram showed similar findings. There was platys pondyli as well. In both of them, we observed a missense mutation in phosphatidylserine decarboxylase enzyme or gene which codes for this, which was rare, found in only these patients, and it is likely to be predicted as disease causing or damaging to the protein function. We segregated in both families, and both families we propose they have the same disease and same disease causing variant. You can see here this variant is well conserved across several species, and protein modeling also suggested this is likely to be the disease causing variant. Interestingly, again, this family too had region of homozygosity on chromosome 22, which had this PISD gene, and the variant was shared by both the families. We went back to ask them whether they were consanguineous. They said no. And we asked whether you are related. They said no. But interestingly, they had the same surname. Then we asked them, what is your origin? Then both of them referred to a place in Maharashtra, that their forefathers or ancestors came from one common region or common village in Maharashtra, which means even if you migrate, you marry, it's a person belonging to the same community, and founder effect or remote inbreeding is very, very common in our Indian population. Briefly, phosphatidylserine decarboxylase is an enzyme which is important for synthesis of phosphatidylethanolamine. It is essential for phospholipid of mitochondrial membrane, and it is located in the inner mitochondrial membrane, as you see here. And disruption of PASD in mice results in early embryonic lethality. And when we saw the literature, the PISD knockout mice had abnormal mitochondrial morphology. There was rounded mitochondria in PISD knockout cells as compared to the normal cells. Then we did not have facilities for function studies on this cell line then, and my colleague Kirsten Couchet and her team helped in this. We saw PISD protein was normal in patients as well as control, as you can see from figure A and B, but the mitochondria had abnormal morphology in the cells under basal conditions in patients. They also subjected the cell lines to stress by Mg132, a chemical reagent, which decreased the cell viability. But if you add ethanolamine, which is required, which is an end product of this metabolism of this enzyme, it is rescued, the cells are rescued. Mg132 also increases caspase levels, but again, if you treat with ethanolamine, caspase levels come down, which is a marker for cell viability and cell damage. With this, we concluded The homozygous missense variant, which is mentioned here in PASD, is associated with the novel spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia form. Patient fibroblasts show fragmented mitochondrial morphology, and induction of stress by MG132 or staurosporin significantly reduces cell viability and increases activation of effector caspases in patient compared to control-derived fibroblasts. Interestingly, if you add ethanolamine, it exogenously, it reduces it improves the cellular phenotype. It is too early, but it is possible that this may be treatable by biochemical intervention. This is a very intensely competitive field. We immediately had two back-to-back publications followed by our publication, where there were 3 reports of patients with short stature. Some had extraskeletal features. We did not have. Some people, some children had microcephaly, joint dislocation, hearing loss, retinal degeneration, and hypomyelination and ataxia. So we are yet to come out with the real phenotype of this disease, but it looks like there are diverse phenotypes attributed to mutations in this gene, not just short stature and skeletal dysplasia. It may be a multisystemic disease which goes well with mitochondrial protein coding gene genetic defects. Now the next part of my talk is on Indian contribution. I have illustrated 2 accounts from our team at Manipal and our collaborators till now. Now I will take you through the remainder of my talk, where we reviewed Indian contribution to rare genetic disorders with the help of my student Shruti and my colleagues Ashwin and Dalal from Hyderabad and Shubha Phadke. So this, if you are interested, you can read this paper from American Journal of Medical Genetics. Even Anik Das Bhaumik from Hyderabad has almost written similar article, but it is more extensive, taking into dissecting each and every discovery in greater detail, which is also a very nice article. So how did we do this? How did we assess Indian contribution to the disease gene discovery? I have already briefed you how it was going globally. We looked into literature where manuscripts have at least one author from an Indian institute located in India. So to call it an Indian work, the author has to be located in an institute which is located in India. We did literature survey for last 21 years, assuming that before 2000 there was no new disease gene discovered from India, because the technology was not so advanced. Then what we did, we sent emails to members of Society for Indian Academy of Medical Genetics, group leaders across the country, national collaborators, clinicians and scientists who had publications in clinical genetics or medical genetics and who had discovered, to ask them what were their team's contribution and what were their friends or collaborators' contribution to disease in discovery. So what is a new disease for this study purpose? Publication of 2 or more patients. So we looked into conditions where at least 2 or more patients with with the different mutations in the same gene with the similar phenotype should be described. So we wanted actually 2 families, because that is where the condition is validated. Some people say it is better to have 3, but for the purpose of this review, we selected 2 or more families, 2 or more different mutations, but all the phenotypes should be same. Or description of 3 or more patients from at least 2 different families with the same phenotype, even if the mutation is the same, like what we did before. Then if it is only a single family which is reported, it is considered publication requiring further confirmation. We did not think that it is sufficient to say this is a new disease causing gene if it was only one publication. First Indian reports of single patients, families, but confirmed by other studies were also included as disease discovered by an Indian team. So what is a new disease? I am continuing from my previous slide. Date of online publication was considered to determine the first publication, whether Indians were first or Americans or Europeans were first. So we consider date of online publication, because sometimes online publication is well ahead, but your print comes a year later, so that you are at a disadvantage if you do not count them. Novel disease gene association in simultaneous publications within 1 year, because simultaneous submission may be there in different journals by 2 different groups. Even then we consider that was first discovery. Description of a new phenotype with a gene that is already known to be associated with another phenotype. So if it is a new phenotype associated with the same gene, we included them. a novel mechanism of disease causation. For example, if it was loss of function earlier and gain of function now, we included them. If a disease is cataloged in OMIM, then we assume that it is one of the new diseases related to a monogenic disorder. If you see the results, as of today, there are total 67 conditions reported in 65 publications, which means 2 of them have more than one, two each conditions described. So 65 papers from India, where at least one Indian author is there, there are 67 conditions. And 7 are reports of single patients, so they require further validation. So we saw autosomal dominant conditions were 13, X-linked were 3, and autosomal recessive were 51. So you can see here, I have this art is prepared by my student, which lists all the genes and all the conditions, because I thought it was extending to 7 or 8 slides. I don't know, but you can refer to the papers which I have mentioned. It is not possible to list them in this presentation. We made our best efforts, but I agree that we might have missed a few. But if somebody can tell, it will be really good, because it is not easy to make a perfect literature set. We saw the trend in publication. Probably the first disease gene discovery, it was done by probably positional cloning or linkage analysis in 2002 and 2003. Then slowly you can see the situation in India in the medical genetic field improved. 2016 saw 10 new disease gene discoveries from Indian with Indian contribution, and 21 we are halfway through, but we already have 12, which shows promising trend for identification of new rare diseases which are monogenic in nature. So we are improving, but this is 12 or this is 4 last year. You can see 300 were from other countries. So where India stands can be assessed by this. Recent trends and enablers of genetic gene discovery. Thanks to the vision of Professor S.S. Agarwal, Dr. I.C. Verma, and able leadership of Shubha Madam and Madhulika Kabra and all the colleagues, clinical geneticists spread across the country, this has become easier than before. We have clinical genetics in accessible to patients with rare disorder. It is still not sufficient, but we have come a long way from the situation which was there 10 years ago. We have good phenotyping skills among the clinicians, extensive national and international collaborations. We are very lucky. I think you all will agree. I think with every Indian clinical or medical geneticist, we have collaborated, and it is such a nice team working for the country and collaborating very well, sending patients, sharing the phenotype, sharing the genetic information. So probably these are the things which contributed to accelerated pace of gene discovery. Next generation sequencing is possible in several centers and is accessible to most of the patients, either through clinical basis or through research basis. Funding situation, I am sure at least some of you would agree, has improved, and you could hear Dr. Shobha Phadke referring to undiagnosed disease program, ICMR function studies network, virtual center for function studies, centers of excellence, funding to sequence human genomes, Indian genomes at several places. Things are improving day by day, but we are still far from what is needed for this huge country. To summarize, most of the Indian contributions are autosomal recessive. Most of the publications have arisen from international collaborations. This is something which we need to know, because they had technical capabilities for exome sequencing, genome sequencing, and a good paper would always need good function studies, which we are currently lacking. And not only this, why do we need international collaboration? Better cohort, larger cohort is better validation of your discovery, which you prove in more patients from more diverse background. That carries more weightage and that is more convincing, so that you don't make errors. Very few national collaborators and single center efforts were noted in this disease gene discovery, which just says all hands need to come together for better genetic discovery. Rare instances of 2 patients from India, which is both plus and minus. So that means Unlike European and American centers, where they hardly see one patient in the entire large set of publication, Indians have the opportunity to see 2 or 3 patients with the same disease in the same center. Okay, so this is something which is advantageous for us. Animal studies are lacking from Indian teams or Indian publications. This is what we noted widely. Modeling uh, Drosophila or mice or earthworm or any other or lower organism for monogenic disease is some area where we need to improve further, and we need to collaborate with the clinicians and scientists to make this disease gene discovery better. In addition to this, I just wanted to reinforce a data set of normal variations is very crucial. This is just to strengthen our disease gene discovery. We have made a very small effort in this direction. Instead of healthy people, we took patients and we compiled data from exome data from 4 centers, and we made the first available data set of variants in Indian children with rare genetic diseases for the public, which is free to download for everyone. And this was possible by All India Institute of Medical Science, Gangaram, SCPJ Lucknow, CDFT, Hyderabad, and Manipal team all coming together to contribute to disease gene discovery and a foundation for identifying new diseases, new genes, and mutations with the help of this database. I have last couple of slides left. In future, I think if there was one more East India company, they would definitely come for gene hunting or to explore the treasure of our population structure, size, and capabilities. Because loss of function variants or human knockouts are more likely to be precipitated by consanguinity. More and more extremely rare genetic disorders are likely to be seen in populations like ours. High potential for uh, discovery of novel genes and rare diseases from India through national and international collaboration. The need of our is improved infrastructure and funding for genomic analysis. We badly need a lot of trained manpower, infrastructure, and a lot of fund to carry out. This helps both in diagnosis, which improves the family's health status, and for research. Efficient in vitro and in vivo modeling for functional validation, mainly cell lines and animals, and basic scientists coming together with the clinicians to take this forward is necessary. Increased collaboration between clinicians and scientists is probably the need of the hour. Why I am telling this is, long time ago, USA established centers for Mendelian genomics, which have immensely contributed for gene discovery. We have Baylor Hopkins Center for Mendelian Genetics, Broad Institute, University of Washington, and Yale University. And we have similar efforts worldwide, including the Forge Canada Consortium. So, do we need Indian Center for Genomics? Do we probably it is time to have Indians in databases, both healthy as well as mutation databases, either local or international. It is time for us to contribute. We use NCBI databases, which is created by Americans or Europeans, but when are we contributing to this kind of databases for global good? Do we really need an Indian gene matcher where Indians can show that we can probably do some better gene match and come out with good papers without the help of other countries? I don't know, but this is one thought which came across to me when I was preparing for this talk. Probably we need some efforts like indigenous. This is a word or phrase coined by Prajna with Shubha madam. The top art show is drawn by Shubha madam. Thank you. And it is just and the background is Atmanirbhar Bharat. So it is like a concept where we do something for Indian genetics and discover genes, mutations. Us means all together. So it is probably something what we should work for, an indigenous approach to genetic disorders. This is my last slide, but you can see there is no acknowledgement slide because I cannot fill the people who have helped me in one slide. There are innumerable teachers colleagues, friends, students who without any hesitation collaborated with us to build a team, to build a vibrant education system and collaborate with everyone. So thanks to everyone. Probably I would end up end my talk by saying Acharyat Padamadatte Padam Shishya Swamedhaya Padam Sabrahmacharibhya Padam Kalakramenahi. Thanks for your patient listening. So thank you very much.
Always a pleasure to hear you talk, sir, and the lectures have always been very enriching. And today we are thankful to you for such an insightful discourse. We now come to the end of a beautiful afternoon, and now I request Deepti ma'am for delivering the vote of thanks.
Good evening, respected Professor R.K. Dhiman sir, Professor S.K. Mishra sir, Professor Shubha madam, all honorable guests, colleagues, staff members, and dear students. I deem it a great honor to propose a vote of thanks to all those who have helped us in making this event a resounding success. First of all, I would like to thank our director, sir, for gracing the event. Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking words. I would like to thank Professor S.K. Mishra, sir, for sharing his experience. We are really enlightened with your knowledge. I would like to extend my gratitude to Professor Girish, sir, for his informative and interesting talk. And I would like to thank our Dr. Shubha madam for her constant support and guidance. It is my pleasure to thank all our guests who are attending this event, both online and offline mode, to take out some time from their busy schedule and making this event a success. And I am happy to thank our staff members who are the building blocks of the department. I would like to thank our dear students who have been a great source of encouragement with their young and smiling faces. Thank you so much once again for your cordial cooperation and kind listening. Thank you.
So, on behalf of our department, we are very thankful to all of you for joining us today in remembering the legacy and vision of Dr. S.S. Agarwal. Ma'am, I would like you to say something now.
Yes, thank you everyone. Dr. Girish's talk was excellent, and I think all students will be really enthused to work more. Thank you everyone. Thank you Pramila ji and the family members of Dr. S.S. Agrawal sir who have joined. Thank you very much. Thank you.